what's going on, guys? So today we're talking about the best decks for the pure Synchro based tournament. So, Master Duel, Konami announced that they're going to be doing extra deck summoning mechanic based tournaments. Right? I had to think about that for a second. I already did the video on Fusion based. If you haven't checked that out, make sure you guys go check that out after this video. Basically, what we're talking about today is what are the best decks to farm if you want to dominate this tournament, right? What decks are the first decks that come to mind? Like, oh, that deck would be really scary in a situation where there's only those archetypes. Because I think a lot of times what ends up happening is like people hear something like this, right? And they go, "Oh, great! My water dolphin, that dolphin archetype, that deck is going to be so good now, right? Because you know it's only synchro based decks, right? And it's like yes and no, right? Like yes, it is going to be better because we don't have to worry about Tri Brigade, or we don't have to worry about some of the decks that are great with a bunch of different extra deck summoning mechanics in them. But for the most part, the meta decks, the decks that are already tiers one, 1, 2, and 3, are going to just be better, right? And that's what this list is. There are going to be some archetypes. I said this in the last video too, that are just great in every format. Eldritch is probably going to be great in every format. Yeah, Eldritch Synchro is okay. Eldritch Fusion's not that bad, but Eldritch is going to be great in every format, right? And then we look at a deck like Monarchs, for example, right? There's archetypes that just do not care about its extra deck. Stun, burn. So that's what we're just going to have it there. But these are synchro, in no particular order, even though I think the first one's going to be the best one. But in no particular order, these are the best synchro summoning based deck in a pure synchro summoning based format. And the first one I want to talk about is Virtual World. Virtual World's interesting because you might think to yourself, oh, Virtual World can't be that good. No Dragoon, obviously, because it's Master Duel. No VFD. No Beatrice. None of the Virtual World Xyz monsters. This deck won't be that good. This deck can still end on Crystal Wing, Shen, Chuchi. In a pure synchro-based format, especially because there really aren't a lot of synchro-based archetypes that deal with the Banish Zone. Most synchro-based, like, I think every deck we're going to talk about interacts with the graveyard in a certain way. And the fact that you could just drop Shen going first could win you the duel outright in this format. And Virtual World, yes, it struggles from consistency. But if we look at when I was putting together this list, I was like, kind of all synchro-based decks, they struggle a bit with consistency because it's kind of like the Monarchs tribute summoning based decks where it's like, I need to tribute summon, I need tribute fodder. You need the tuners, you need the monsters, you need the synchro monsters, right? And Virtual World struggles with that, but it's not as inconsistent as people say. And it is one of the better archetypes right now, if not actually the best archetype in Duel Link. It actually might be the best archetype in Duel Links. But obviously, no VFD does nerf this deck a lot. But like I said, it can still end Shen, Crystal Wing, Chuchi. It can still end on Shen, Chuchi. Shen, Chuchi is so difficult to get going against because Shen is so powerful. So Virtual World probably goes without saying, one of the better archetypes. Don't want to dive too deep into it, obviously. The next deck, another one that goes without saying, not the watches here, but Synchron. I know in the last video, we did fusions with elemental heroes. It's like that. Like Synchron's got like that situation. Like there's so many Synchron cards and non-Synchron cards. These are watches too. But there's so many, and this archetype really isn't that far away from being tiers, 1.5, tier 2. Maybe not tier 1.5, but maybe tier 2, bottom of tier 2. This archetype's really close, right? And with cards like Tuning and Quick Draw Synchron and Junk Synchron, Excel Synchron, Formula Synchron, this archetype is pretty scary. What's the craziest thing, though, I like the most about Synchron, maybe more than any other deck on this list, it can make just about any Synchro monster you could think of. Trishula, which has weird conditions, this deck can make, right? Star Eater, which is level 11, this deck can make. Formula Synchro, which is level 2, this deck can make, and every deck in between, right? So this deck can do it all and do it all very well. I don't know if Synchron's gonna run the only Synchro based format, but I think that it is going to be a very dangerous deck to watch out for because it is just so full of support, right? The next deck I want to talk about, Zombie Swarm. I had to look up Zombie Light Swarm Yu-Gi-Oh! Because if you do Zombie Swarm, you get a different result. This has been one of the best synchro-based archetypes of all time. I know, obviously, Lightstorm has Minerva, and, that's one of the better cards for this archetype, but that's really it. And what's great about Zombie Swarm is because of cards like Gozuki, or Mizuki, I think Gozuki, Unizombie, Raiden, Wolf, even Lumina, this archetype has a lot of interactions with level 8 in 7 synchros. And for those who know anything about synchro monsters, those are the best ones. Omega is in there, right? I believe Shen Shen is a level 8 synchro monster, right? Black Rose Dragon. Um, we're talking about the Archfiend cards are all like Scarlet, uh, and the like not on the bigger end Archfiend cards, but definitely a lot of the Archfiend cards are like that, right? And there's others too. I'm kind of drawing a blank here, but I feel like I've already listed a good amount, right? And Lightstorm, in and of itself, almost leans towards it would be good in any format. Like, you could argue Zombie Swarm is going to be pretty good in Xyz, too, right? But the reason I have it here specifically in Synchro is because of that Unizombie interaction. Because I do want to give a little shout out to Shiranui. I was debating on putting. I'll just put it up on the list here. Shiranui here. I was debating on putting this in here. Oh, that's a fun. I didn't expect that. I was debating on putting this in here anyway, but I don't think it's going to be good enough, right? But Shiranui is another zombie-based, synchro-based archetype that has a lot of cool interactive cards. We're talking about a card like Spirit Master, and we talk about a card like Solitaire and Spectral Sword. It can do some cool things, right? So Zombie Swarm, Zombie Toolbox. There's another. It's like Master Key or something like that. That's a zombie-based archetype. I don't think that's going to be very good, to be honest with you. It's not good. Just because it's only synchro-based doesn't mean it's going to be. But Shiranui might be, but certainly Zombie Swarm will be. Right. The next archetype we're going to talk about is Speedroids. Speedroids might be the worst deck on this list, but it might be the best. And the reason I say it might be the worst is because maybe I'm evaluating it too high, but the reason I say it might be the best is because Speedroids are sneaky. I think a lot of people don't realize how good Speedroids actually are. And I know Terratop is still at 1, RIP. Hashtag never forget. But this archetype can still do crazy good things. It still has access to a lot of wind synchro monsters. And if you notice, like, wind specifically is very good. Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, Clear Wing Synchro Dragon, they're both wind monsters, right? And Speedroids can actually do a lot of very powerful things. I don't know the archetype super duper well, but I do know that I wouldn't be surprised if this archetype started killing it in the synchro-based format. The next thing we're talking about, I kind of hinted at it already, but it's actually going to be that archetype, right? Archfiend. Red Dragon Archfiend dot deck. And the reason for that is similar to Synchron's, actually. It has access to a lot of cards. There are a lot of Resonator cards. And there's a lot of good Resonator cards, too. You have Resonator Call, which can search all of them. You have the Tin Goldfish, that's level 2. I forget its name. A lot of these cards are actually interesting with the way they function. And what's great about Resonators is that this deck plays the simplified game state very well. And a lot of times, that's just what Yu-Gi-Oh comes down to. Yeah, it's cool that you can summon 6 monsters, with your best hand ever. That's so awesome and cool. And you can set 5 trap cards and have 5 cards in your hand. You can go plus 11 and have 17 negates with your best hand ever. But, your strong is your weakest link. And I think in a lot of cases, summoning a monster like Red Dragon Nova, for example, it's got 3,500 attack, can't be destroyed by card effects, banishes targets. It's a lot. It's got a lot. Even a card like this guy, Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, 3,200 attack. Right? It's just there's a lot of big monsters. These archetype decks outsports super easily, but it also goes first super well because it does have Omni negations, because it does have cool interactions there. So I think Red Dragon Archfiend will get a time to shine in a purely synchro based format. But the next deck I want to talk about is going to be Dragunity. Dragunity should have been obvious here. I know they got the Link monster, but we know what Dragunity's about. Dragunity's about this guy. Right, Dragunity's about this guy. I mean, Dragon Dream's a great card. And there's so many great ways to get into this card. Like the consistency of Dragunity is so much better, in my opinion, than it used to be. Because this is an older archetype. I mean, obviously all of them are, but some more than others. And Dragunity is pretty old. Dragunity is one of the OG synchro-based archetypes, and it has gotten support recently. So I look at this archetype, similar to Red Dragon Archfiend. You can just put the biggest monster on the board, and that's the thing about kind of all synchro summoning based decks like to just summon a big monster, but definitely Red Dragon Archfiend and Dragunity, just big gigantic monsters that have crazy effects on them as well, because they have big payoffs, because they have a hard summoning mechanic, and in most cases Red Dragon Archfiend, Dragunity, they don't get to showcase. They don't get to show you like this is how good this deck is because you're running, one card combo, Tri Brigade, and you got 7 hand traps in your hand somehow, right? But in a pure synchro based format where maybe there's less hand traps, Dragunity could do a lot of damage, right? But the last archetype I want to talk about, low key, I know I said this about like a few archetypes now, but this one could actually be the best. And I'm being serious. And I know we don't get Halki Fibrex. But Halki Fibrex, to be honest, isn't that great in its own archetype. Like, the impact that Halki Fibrex makes in some cases in other archetypes is bigger than the impact it makes in Crystron. Because Crystron, I mean, obviously the floating effect of Halki Fibrex is really good, but that's kind of the underrated effect that not a lot of archetypes use, right? But Crystron does super well, and obviously you can't run Halki Fibrex, but it has so many other great cards. And what I love about Crystron, it's like that dark magician type vibe to it. You know what I mean? Or even like Eldritch kind of does this, where it doesn't function like a regular deck. What do regular decks do? Summon, search, draw, summon, search. That's not Crystron. Crystron is going to search. Crystron is going to summon. But Crystron's going to do a lot of searching and summoning during your turn, right? If I'm the Crystron player, I'm going to set up my board so during your turn, I can start synchro summoning. And that's what makes this deck so crazy, is that while all the other decks are trying to set up a crazy first turn board, or all the other decks are trying to out their first turn boards by going second, Crystron is interacting during its opponent's turn. Which is why I think Crystron, I'll say this, maybe it won't be the best. It's probably the most underrated. This is my dark horse pick, right? But let me know what you guys think. What synchro-based archetype do you think would be the best in a pure synchro-based format? Let me know in those comments down below. If you haven't seen the Fusion one, make sure you guys go check that video out. Make sure you click that subscribe button because I will be doing Xyz a little bit later in the week, right? But most importantly of all, of course, as always, have a good day.